Most well known is his $100 million donation to the Newark public school system to transform educational system there. I wonder whether his philanthropy has been effective. Was he failing, passing, excelling? And that question is on my mind, and I hope it's also on yours. So from my little corner, I see 5 trends that are currently emerging in corporate CSR, corporate social responsibility, and philanthropy. Ask to please raise your hands if you've been told when you were younger, please do well first before you do good. Anyone? I see some hands. Well, you all know this young man, I'm sure, and I'm quite sure he was probably told the same thing, and we all know he's done very, very well. He has also been doing quite a lot of good. Most well known is his $100 million donation to the Newark public school system to transform educational system there by rewarding good teachers and potentially firing bad teachers. After several years, 95% of the teachers in that school system still retain their jobs. Graduation rates from high schools had risen slightly, but there was public opinion and outcry about the accountability and transparency of the funds. That has not deterred him, and he has made a further pledge of $120 million to the San Francisco Bay Area school system to achieve the same outcome. I wonder whether his philanthropy has been effective. Was he failing, passing, excelling? And that question is on my mind, and I hope it's also on yours. It's on my mind because I have the good fortune to be working in a corporate foundation by deploying corporate resources to do good from a company that has done well. And in that little humble corner of the world, we've been seeing some interesting things happening in CSR and philanthropy, and I'll share them with you today. I start first by talking about a volunteer engagement that happened last year. A group of 25 volunteers, carrying with them a variety of skills in marketing, customer service experience, digital platforms, came to us and said, we'd love to do something. We want a challenge. We want to do social good. We want to overcome that challenge. So we went looking for a challenge, and we found one. A social enterprise put up its hand and said, I have a marketing problem, please help me. And so we put together a program where over 8 hours, these volunteers and that social enterprise tackled that challenge. Many solutions were presented. Everybody was excited about the innovation. They shook hands, they patted backs, and the day was over and the job was done. 6 months later, the social enterprise was not able to deploy the solution because there were other deeper problems that they were facing which were not addressed. You can see an example of some frustrated faces. This year, we tried something a little bit different. We had a team of 4 volunteers that spent 1 month, 4 working weeks, with 6 different social enterprises to find out what were their most pressing needs and the most difficult problems that they are facing at the moment. And it emerged that most of them were facing challenges in financing and accounting and taxation. And so this group of volunteers went throughout the rest of the company to recruit more volunteers with that same expertise. And within half a day, were able to provide consultation and clinic sessions where the social enterprises felt a lot more fulfilled when they left the room. So that was a great experience for us. It was a great lesson because we learned that when it comes to deploying corporate resources for social good, we have to lead with demand, not with supply. We needed to invest the time and the resources to find out what were the needs that needed to be addressed and not go out looking for a fit for the resources we had to offer. That was the first lesson that we had learned. I will tell a different vantage point now. Some years ago, I was volunteering on behalf of an organization that supports mothers that are recovering from substance abuse. They wanted to provide livelihood opportunities for these mothers. So we raised funds, we raised $50,000, and we reckoned with $50,000 we could hire a skills trainer for 1 year. So given that that was a resource we had, we designed a program. The program was, skills trainer would go into the community where the mothers were and offer workshops for mothers to attend, gain a skill, and subsequently obtain employment. In retrospect, I wish the funder that gave us that $50,000 asked us a different question. I wish they could ask us, what are the most critical needs that had to be met before mothers can go get a job. And maybe the answer would have been that mothers who are recovering from substance abuse and their children needed to be removed from the community that was rife with dealers and abusers. And maybe then what was needed was a safe house with the social and emotional support that could help them get over this difficulty. And then they can go for good training. And then maybe the $50,000 could be put towards building that safe house. So the encouraging thing that we've seen is that more and more funders, more and more CSR and corporate funders are thinking now along that second decision chain of arrows. They are realizing that it's important to think about needs, design, resources, outcomes, impact. Funds are only a means to an end. And it also means that quantum does not dictate how much resources can eventually be deployed for the outcomes you seek. But in this environment where we start talking about needs and design and impact and outcomes, it is inevitable that we need to look at the reality of the environment we operate in. Complex problems, difficult solutions, limited resources. We all know it's not perfect. So why don't we talk about mistakes? Why don't we talk about failure? Why are we not learning from that? It's encouraging when a corporate funder or CSR initiative looks at past mistakes and learns from it, because that means that they are effectively deploying resources without wastage. They are not recreating the wheel. The agile philanthropist, the agile funder is who will win the day, because that's the kind of environment we're operating in now. You see on the screen here, this is a screenshot from Engineers Without Borders Canada, where on a regular basis they will publish failure reports that accompany their annual reports. That level of transparency is commendable. I wish we would see more of that here in Asia. Because when you have that transparency, you can have open and honest conversations about what needs to be changed, what works, and what does not. And we need to have those conversations because we are in a complex system that is evolving faster than we can possibly imagine. Professor X and Magneto have to start working together because they need to combat apocalypse. We know that story. It's the same in what we have to do in this social sector. We need to work with collaborative platforms, like Company of Good in Singapore, and have common goals, like the Sustainable Development Goals. Picture in your mind an agricultural company working with a consumer goods company, accompanied by their banker. All three of them partnering a conservation organization that has a social enterprise arm working with communities of smallholder farmers to encourage sustainable farming so that ecological impact can be reduced. An impact investor funds that social enterprise, and the CSR resources from the three companies work with the communities that are being impacted. Complex? That's because it is. And that's what's needed today, and it's already starting to happen. Unusual alliances are being formed. I credit that phrase to Ashoka. Unusual allies are being found. Real partnerships are being formed. And it's exciting because that means we now see a different dimension to social impact. Because we know that social impact is no longer just about scale. It's no longer just about numbers and reach, doing more, going broader. We know what happened when there was a single-minded pursuit of numbers and scale. We remember the grim stories of microfinance. We know what happened when institutions collapsed. There was overextension, communities torn apart, and lives lost. So it's encouraging that we are now thinking of impact in a different way, in different dimensions. There are questions being asked now based on data, objective analysis. Given a certain amount of resources, am I better off funding an anti-malaria program in an emerging country where thousands of lives can be saved? Or am I better off putting that money into underserved communities in highly academic centers to fund the training of guide dogs so that visually impaired students can make their way through university? I don't have the answer to that question, but I'm excited that these questions are being asked. And I'm excited that we are thinking about impact in a different way. And I'm really happy to see that we now know that scale does not equal impact. So from my little corner, I see 5 trends that are currently emerging in corporate CSR, corporate social responsibility, and philanthropy. Leading with demand, not with supply. Funding comes towards the end. The agile will win, form unusual allies to create real partnerships, and scale does not equal impact. I don't know what this means to you, but I can tell you what it means to me. It means that there is a quiet disruption in philanthropy happening. There is a shift in how we're thinking about corporate resources, doing good for society, and how that relates to business. It is reconstructing the relationship between philanthropy and business because it knows that philanthropy is now agile. It is adapting to multiple stakeholders, long-term and short-term, hard and soft, power dynamics, externalities, internal issues. And that's exciting. It generates creativity, it inspires innovation, and it excites people into a virtuous circle because you have people that would have engaged with philanthropy in a corporate context that are also influencing business, because we all know that traditional business models no longer work in the current societal and environmental challenges that we face. So what better way for this new form of thinking that is sensitive to stakeholders and environment around us to influence business, that generates new innovations in products and processes, that gives us even more possibilities for philanthropy that is impactful. Banking services for persons suffering from dementia. Self-driving cars for people that are mobility impaired. The possibilities are endless. If we see this virtual circle continuing, where it respects the difference between philanthropy and business, but extracts the best elements of both. And that's how I think we can do good really, really well. So to my story, I close with that. I left the corporate sector 9 years ago, quite bitter, as if you calculate 9 years ago meant that was at the peak of the financial crisis. But I was corporate enough to hedge my bets and said that I will only return to the corporate sector if circumstances compel me to do so. Today, I'm a mother of 2 young children, and circumstances have compelled me to do so, because we live in a society now where everyone is increasingly becoming socially aware and conscious and activist, willing to say something. But we have ever more complex problems to deal with, looking for innovative solutions with limited resources. So it's crying out for a new kind of leadership. And I'm happy that I am in a role now in a corporate foundation as a worker bee, that perhaps I can be a small part of this leadership. And I call on anybody else in this room who are also in corporate philanthropy to please work with me, and let's try to make that difference. And I'm calling on everybody else who's not in corporate philanthropy, let's form that unusual alliance. Let's form that unusual alliance to move the quiet disruption into a revolution so that we can do good really, really well. Thank you very much.